Sri Ganeshaya Namaha, Sri Saraswatye Namaha, Sri Padavallabha Narasimha Saraswati, Sri Guru Dattatreya Namaha. Dattathreyam Mahatmanam Varadam Bhaktavatsalam Prapannartiharam Vande Smartrugami Sanovatu Deenabandhum Kripasindhum Sarvakaranakaranam Sarvarakshakaram Vande Smartrugami Sanovatu Sharanagata Deenartha Paritrana Parayanam Narayanam Vibhum Vande Smartrugami Sanovatu Sarvanarthaharam Devam Sarvamangalamangalam Sarvakleshaharam Vande Smartrugami Sanovatu Brahmanyam Dharma Tattvajnam Bhakta Kirti Vivardhanam Bhaktabhishta-pradam Vande Smartrugami Sanovatu Shoshanam Papa Pankasya Deepanam Jnana Tejasa Tapa Prashamanam Vande Smartrugami Sanovatu Sarvaroga Prashamanam Sarva Pida Nivaranam Vipaduddharanam Vande Smartrugami Sanovatu Janma Samsara Bandhagnam Swarupanandadayakam Nishreyasapadam Vande Smartrugami Sanovatu Jayanamaya Shakkama Dhatur Dattasya Yastavam Bhoga Moksha Pradasyemam Prapatet Sakrimave Sri Ganeshaya Namaha, Sri Saraswatye Namaha, Sri Padavallabha Narasimha Saraswati, Sri Guru Dattatreya Namaha.
Sri Datta Darshanam, The Vision of Datta by Sri Ganapathy Sachchidananda Swamiji, published by Avadhoota Datta Peetham, Dattanagar, Mysore, India. Publisher's Note. Jai Guru Datta. Sri Ganapathy Sachchidananda Avadhoota Datta Peetham is happy to make available to its English-knowing devotees, particularly those abroad, the English edition of Sri Datta Darshanam, a narration of the inexhaustible story of Lord Dattatreya and his divine sports, first given out by Parama Pujya Sri Swamiji in Telugu a decade ago. Sri Datta Darshanam has been translated into several Indian languages to satisfy the demands of the devotees in our multilingual country. Pujya Sri Swamiji's devotees abroad had been repeatedly requesting him to bring out an English version. Pujya Sri Swamiji has graciously fulfilled the aspirations of these devotees. Prasada Sharma, Executive Trustee, Datta Peetham, Dattatreya Jayanti, 28th December 1993. Shri Ganeshaya Namaha, Shri Saraswatyai Namaha, Shri Padavallabha Narasimha Saraswati, Shri Guru Dattatreya Namaha. Sri Datta Darshanam. Four-faced Brahma, born from the lotus-like navel of Sri Narayana, began the creation of the worlds guided by the Vedas and followed the order of creation as in the previous Kalpa, a period of 1,000 yugas measuring the duration of the world. He created the 14 lokas, the 7 upper worlds Bhu, Bhuvah, Swaha, Mahaha, Janaha, Tapaha and Satya, and the 7 lower worlds Atala, Sutala, Vitala, Talatala, Rasatala, Patala and Mahatala, and innumerable hosts of living beings, remembering that he should create the human race, the head and crown of all creation, in whom Manas or mind is the chief possession. He began with Manasa Srishti, creation by will. Marichi, Atri, Angiras, Vasishtha and the other Saptarshis, the 7 rishis, were the mind-born sons of Brahma. Not only these, but several other great souls were born to him as mind-born sons. Also from his limbs, several sons were born. From his shadow was born Prajapati Kardama, the greatest among tapasvins, those engaged in tapas or penance. As Brahma went on creating in all these ways, This endless act of creation seemed tiresome to him. Then Mother Shruti, Vedamata, appeared before him and taught him the principle of creation through the union of man and woman. Thereafter, he took to and continued this process of creation, which could not only go on by itself, but could also grow and expand and be in accordance with the dharmas of the householder. As a first step to this mode of creation, arose from out of his right part of his body a man called Swayambhuva Manu, and from the left a woman called Shatarupa. To this very first couple were born 2 sons, Priyavrata and Uttanapada, and 3 daughters named Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. As the daughters came of age, Swayambhuva Manu found it a great and difficult task to secure suitable husbands for them. He gave his eldest daughter Akuti in marriage to Ruchi, an ascetic, one of the mind-born sons of Brahma. The marriage of the second daughter, Devahuti, however, proved much more difficult. He found it very hard to select a suitable husband for her, for she was second to none in beauty, character, and wisdom. At last, after consulting Brahma, he decided that the great Kardama Prajapati was the right husband for Devahuti. But at that time, Kardama Prajapati was absorbed in severe penance in the Siddhashrama. As directed by Brahma, Manu took his daughter there and married her to Kardama Prajapati and returned. With matchless devotion, Devahuti served her husband, who was absorbed in deep tapas, penance, for many thousands of years. She guarded him as the eyelid guards the eye. One day, Kardama Prajapati, very much pleased with the unequaled purity and dedicated service of his wife, was overcome with compassion. He divined her feelings and at once created by his volition marvelous bhavans, mansions, hordes of attendants, and a heavenly vimana, an aircraft. He himself assumed 9 different forms and sported with her in many ways, all the while remaining unattached. To that righteous couple were born 9 daughters, named Kala, Anasuya, Shraddha, Havirbhuva, Gati, Kriya, Urja, Chiti, and Khyati. Not only these, Sriman Mahavishnu was also born to them as their only son under the name Kapila. Brahma's act of creating the human species continued ceaselessly. It increased by leaps and bounds. But in the name of Grihastha Dharma, or duty of a householder, people indulged in sense pleasures and vulgar enjoyments. They ignored the need for contemplation and forgot the soul. It caused Brahma deep anguish, and he reflected over it seriously. He came to the conclusion that the incarnation of a savior, possessing immense moral and spiritual power, would be the only solution to this problem. Forthwith he performed the marriage of Anasuya, the second daughter of Kardama Prajapati, a woman of great virtue, with his own mind-born second son, Maharshi Atri, a peerless Brahmagnani, a self-realized soul. And then he commanded Atri to assist him in his work of creation according to Grihastha Dharma. That excellent couple spent many thousands of celestial years as man and wife. Their wedded life was full of tapas, faultless, marvelous, unequaled, and unsullied by lust. How glorious was their tapas! By the power of his tapas, Maharshi Atri was able to receive the revelation of the 5th mandala of the Shakalya branch of the Rig Veda, that part of the Veda containing prayers to Agnilinga and the topic of Amarendra possess the power of bestowing happiness both here and in the hereafter. Once, in the Krita Yuga, first of the 4 yugas or ages of the world, when disease and sickness spread and the world of living beings was being destroyed, it was this magnanimous Maharshi who obtained the vision of Ayurveda, the science of life. At another time, when people were feeling that the Dharma Shastra compiled by Manu had become incomprehensible, Atri himself composed a smriti, a law book, in words beautiful, clear, and easy to understand. Again, when in the battle between the demons and devatas, the sun and the moon were captured by the demons, thus plunging the whole world in utter darkness, it was noble Atri who, moved by the appeals of the devatas, himself assumed the form of the sun and the moon and dispersed light into the world. In this way he performed many great deeds for the welfare of the world. There is no comparison to the various miracles performed by Anasuya with her exemplary chastity and sincere devotion to her husband. Once, when owing to scorching heat the river Ganga dried up, Anasuya brought the river back to life for the convenience of the Munis, the sages. Again, when the river Ganga lost its purity and had been turned black by the sinner's touch, Anasuya sprinkled water from her kamandalu, the water pot used by ascetics, and burnt away all the impurities of Ganga in an instant. She performed many such great deeds. Thus, the noble couple, Atri and Anasuya, spent thousands of years living an ideal wedded life. But Brahma's command to assist him in the act of creation remained unfulfilled. This made the couple very unhappy. The task, however, was not easy. Now Maharshi Atri, accompanied by his wife, went to the banks of the river Nirvindhya and, sitting in a suitable place on the peaks of the Riksha mountain, began a very rigorous tapas. Standing on one leg in Garudasana and controlling the breath in accordance with the rules of pranayama and living on air, he was immersed in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, deep meditation, for 100 years. As he had gone beyond the Triputis, triads such as knower, known, and knowing, during his tapas, an impossible accomplishment for others, the groups of Devarshis shouted aloud, Atri, 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 literally one devoid of the three gunas, a well-deserved name indeed. While her husband was thus engaged in severe tapas, Anasuya, the ideal wife, voluntarily undertook parallel disciplines. She vigilantly guarded his tapas so that no obstacle could get the better of it. Atri's achievements caused wonder to all the worlds. Owing to the unique pranayama practiced by the Maharshi, a mighty fire arose in his body. That fire issued forth from his Brahma Kapala Randhra, the invisible opening in the center of the head, in powerful smoke-colored flames. In no time, those flames spread over the three worlds and began to consume them. Then, seeing the intensity of Atri's tapas, the Trinity, responsible for the maintenance and protection of the world, felt immensely happy. Accompanied by hosts of serving devatas, they appeared before him. The three-colored luster of the Trinity illumined his mind like a flash of lightning. The Muni was scared by the piercing light, which the mind's eye could not bear, and he trembled. Somehow he recovered and withdrew from his samadhi. As he opened his eyes, he saw before him Brahma seated on the swan, Vishnu on Garuda, and Maheshwara on the bull, flashing red, black, and white effulgence, and with kind, sweet smiles on their gracious faces. With tears of joy in his eyes, the Maharshi prostrated on the ground before them. Choked with emotion and in a faltering voice, he extolled the Trinity. He said, O Maheshwara, prostrations to thee, who art truth personified. Thou art devoid of qualities. Thou art only a witness. By the power of Maya, illusion, consisting of the three gunas, sattva, quality of purity or goodness, rajas, quality of passion, agitation, and tamas, quality of darkness or ignorance, thou hast assumed the three forms of Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara to favor your devotees, and in those forms thou art creating, sustaining, and destroying the worlds. O primordial Purusha, the Supreme Being existing from the beginning, prostrations to thee, who art beyond names and forms and art peerless. Desirous of progeny, I contemplated upon thee in thy single form. O Lord, how compassionate thou art! Thou hast favored me with the three divine resplendent forms which are beyond the comprehension of such simple souls as us, and hast come to oblige me. How fortunate am I! O Trinity, prostrations to thee. O Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, prostrations to thee. The trio, pleased with the Maharshi's devotion and steadfastness, said, O Munindra, you are a noble soul, therefore your desire is also noble. It will never be in vain, though the ultimate reality is one and one only, and devoid of qualities. You meditated upon it with the aid of the three gunas. When the one without gunas becomes endowed with gunas, it cannot but assume the three forms. We shall be born to you with our respective aspects. O Munindra, with intense devotion you have surrendered yourself to us. Out of our love for you and in appreciation of the power of your tapas, we are giving ourselves to you. Your desire will be fully fulfilled by the child that will be born to you. May auspiciousness come to you. After granting the boon, the Trinity disappeared. At the same moment, a handsome boy, the very personification of loveliness, appeared before the blessed couple. The boy had 3 faces and 6 hands. He wore a pitambara round his waist. Lovely curls of hair graced his forehead. Round his neck he wore divine necklaces and gold bracelets on his wrists. All the 3 worlds lit his face. There was a rare brilliance around him, which could open one's inner eye. On seeing the boy, the couple were ecstatic with joy. Their hearts were filled to overflowing with gratitude, and their devotion increased greatly. With outstretched arms, the boy called out to them, "Mother! Father!" Their feelings of parental affection hidden in the depths of their hearts were aroused, but their devotion was greater than their affection. The boy smiled handsomely and innocently at the couple, oscillating between affection and devotion, and said, "O mother, O father, I understand your feelings. I am also eager to have the good fortune of being born as your son and to please you with my boyish pranks. I am Datta, one who has given away himself. Wait for some time, and I shall give myself to you." Bestowing thus a boon again, the boy disappeared. Having thus achieved their objective, the saintly couple, filled with joy, returned to their hermitage near Dandakaranya, and served by disciples and engaging themselves in routine austerities, lived happily. One day, Devarshi Narada came there and praised the greatness of Atri and Anasuya in 1,000 ways. Giving Anasuya some chickpeas he had brought with him, Narada requested Anasuya to cook it for him. However much she tried, Anasuya could not get the gram cooked. The grain resisted the cooking as if they were iron pieces. But when she exercised the power of her volition, the chickpeas became soft and fragrant. Narada felt very happy and left. Some time passed. Then, one noon, when Maharshi Atri had gone to the river to bathe, 3 young sages came to the ashram as guests. They seemed very tired, having walked from afar in the hot sun. Anasuya, a strict follower of the scriptural injunction, Abhyagato Swayam Vishnuhu, a guest is Vishnu himself, was filled with tender affection on seeing them. She asked them to stay for lunch in the ashram. They said, without any hesitation, that they had certain special rules of conduct which they observed strictly, and that if she promised to comply with them in full, they would accept her hospitality. Affectionate Anasuya consented. She spread the leaves and served the food. The guests were about to commence eating, but before doing so, they announced their condition. Unless Anasuya undressed herself before serving water for Uposana, they would not permit her to say Amritamastu. This was their practice, they said. Anasuya was taken aback and even speechless. She was thrown into confusion. She was in a dilemma. She wondered if she should obey these hungry guests, ascetics, blessed ones, or drive them out of the house as sinners who adhered to such unholy practices. But there was no time to think. They had already become angry and were on the point of getting up. Quickly and without any effort, she meditated on her husband, and instantly an idea flashed through her like lightning. Then Anasuya sprinkled water from the tips of her fingers on the heads of those young sages. The next moment, the 3 young sages became pretty babies. On seeing them, milk began to ooze from Anasuya's breasts. She felt also an overflowing flood of maternal affection. Anasuya was beside herself with joy and forgot herself. She took the 3 babies in her arms, fondled them, and fed them with milk from her breast. Then she put them in cradles and, singing a lullaby, put them to sleep. On returning from the river, Atri Maharshi was overjoyed to see the unexpected acquisition of offspring. All the Muni couples living in the ashram felt great wonder on seeing those bright little ones. They praised Anasuya's greatness highly. Enjoying the frolics of those children, the saintly couple did not notice the passage of time. The little ones were everything to them. Fondling and playing with them was their only tapas now. Thus some time passed. Their happiness knew no bounds. One day, however, Lakshmi, Parvati, and Saraswati came to the ashram suddenly. The saintly couple felt happy, and after offering arghya, respectful offering of water to wash hands, and padya, respectful offering of water to wash one's feet, worshipped them. But they were a little puzzled to see symptoms of distress on the faces of their divine guests. After the formalities were over, the 3 universal mothers held up the upper ends of their saris and with humility, tears flowing from their eyes, begged Anasuya to restore their husbands to them. Anasuya could not understand what was the matter. Her intellect could not function in that strange and unexpected situation. Somehow she recovered and inquired as to what was the cause of their distress. The 3 Devis gradually unfolded to her the whole story of their worries. After their successful tapas on the Rikshadri, the fame of the saintly couple, especially the glory of Anasuya's virtue, had spread in all the 3 worlds. One day, Narada Muni came before the 3 Devis and extolled in glorious terms the greatness of Anasuya's dutiful wifehood, which he said was without equal. The praise of Anasuya, an ordinary mortal, made the 3 Devis envious. Therefore, in order to humiliate her, they made a quantity of imitation chickpeas out of iron and sent it to her through Narada. When Anasuya succeeded in cooking the chickpeas thoroughly without much effort, the minds of the 3 Devis became disturbed. Their humiliation seemed unbearable. They could not bear the humiliation and devised a plan to use their husbands to put Anasuya's chastity to the most severe test. Their husbands, who had come as youthful sages, they explained, had now become babes in the hands of Anasuya and were loudly prattling and rolling in the dust of her hermitage. The 3 infants playing in Anasuya's lap were really their husbands, whom the 3 Devis wanted to be given back. Anasuya was filled with surprise. Within themselves, all the sages were praising Anasuya's wonderful power, which had transformed the Trinity into babes. Maharshi Atri stood stunned. The very thought of parting with the babies, who were dearer to them than their own life, was for the couple like giving away their own hearts. But on seeing the grief-stricken faces of the three Devis, Anasuya, motivated by sentiments of righteousness and moved by thoughts of the well-being of the three worlds, suppressed her motherly feelings and transformed the children into their real forms. She then gave them back to the three Devis. The celestial beings were overjoyed at this marvelous event and rained down flowers on the couple and praised them in many ways. Even though a vacuum had been created in Anasuya's heart by the loss of the children, the routine austerities of both Anasuya and Atri then continued as usual. A long time passed. Is there any wound which time cannot heal? Gradually, the sadness in the hearts of the saintly couple diminished. Their observances and rituals went on unhindered. Sumati. One day, the ascetics who woke up early in the morning and waited for the sun to rise were thrown into panic when they saw that the sun did not rise at all. It just remained a long, long night. All the ascetics went to sage Atri's hermitage and sat around the saintly couple, not knowing what to do. Symptoms of deadly diseases began to appear in the world. 10 days passed in the long, dark, sunless night that seemed to have come to stay. When the sages, who were the benefactors of the world, saw that condition and those symptoms and pondered over their effects, they wondered where they had come from. Who was responsible for such a desperate condition, they thought. At that time, Indra, accompanied by all the celestial beings and Devarshis, with grief written all over their faces, also came there and bowed at the feet of Anasuya and Atri. With folded hands, he prayed to Anasuya, "O Mother, you have to save all the three worlds from this terrible calamity. We have no one else but you in whom we can take refuge." The saintly couple asked him to tell them what had happened. With a long, deep sigh, Indra began, "O divine Atri Maharshi, divine Mother Anasuya, please listen to me patiently. There is a Brahmin by the name of Kaushika in Pratishtanapura. Though he is learned, owing to his previous karma, he has fallen into evil ways and consequently is afflicted with severe leprosy. It looks as though his entire merit follows him in the form of his wife. The name of the dutiful wife is Sumati Devi, a name which is very appropriate to her. Mother, it is not proper for me to praise another woman in front of you. Yet, if one pronounces her name on waking up from sleep, it is enough to bestow on one all felicity and fortune, even final beatitude. The divine rishis in the Satyaloka declare that this is the truth. She worships her husband much more than she worships God. Though he is suffering from leprosy and his whole body is rotting and worms are crawling on it, she is not disgusted by him. On the contrary, he even appears quite handsome to her. The service she renders him daily is wonderful indeed. She washes his wounds with the water of the river Ganga, cleans them and bandages them. Then she massages his legs, fans him, and speaks sweet words to keep his mind cheerful. She removes his filthy excretions, cleans the bleeding and pus-oozing sores, applies medicine, and takes care to see that flies do not sit on them. Even a mother does not wait upon her child with such care. Even the eyelid does not guard the eye so vigilantly. She tends to him with utter devotion and faithfulness. Though his wife serves him like the goddess of fortune settled in his house, that cruel-hearted husband annoys her and torments her whenever he can. He gazes at her fiercely, he scolds her incessantly, and grumbles unnecessarily. For no reason he beats her suddenly and inflicts wounds all over her body. In spite of all this, her mind does not waver. She does not turn against him. She does not oppose him. She does not even cry. She does not find fault with him. On the contrary, she considers all the fault to be her own. She always conforms to his moods and speaks to him pleasantly. All the time she tries to keep him peaceful and contented. This very heavy burden is her daily routine. Yet she does not feel any disgust, nor does she betray any signs of fatigue. One day, after she had bathed her husband and placed him on a cot near the door, Indra continued, she went in to attend to her domestic work. At that time, his leprous fingers had begun to dangle and his joints to stiffen. He had lost the power of moving by himself. He lay on the cot like an animal whose midriff had been broken. With his eyes open, he lay staring at the passers-by on the road in front of him when his eyes fell on a young harlot. "Mother," exclaimed Indra, "it is improper for me to mention such indecent episodes in front of you. But Cupid knows neither high nor low. A debased person does not bother about propriety or impropriety. Furthermore, stupidity is ingrained in such a person. Therefore, however much he tried, Kaushika could not drive away the worm of lust that had entered his mind. Finding no other way to get what he wanted, he made known his desire to his wife. On hearing this, she was startled. She felt as though she were half dead. What was to be done? His desire was not consistent with his condition, but he told her that he would not even touch food if he did not get his way. He sat with his face all shriveled up. She knew him very well. Rarely did a desire arise in his mind, but if and when it did, even Brahma could not change his mind. Praying to God, she promised to fulfill his desire after nightfall, and after much persuasion made him take his food. Night came. To Kaushika, who was in haste, time moved slowly. To worsen the situation, intense darkness spread that night, and it began to drizzle. No sooner had night set in than Kaushika began to press her to start. She entreated him to wait till all the village were asleep. Then she placed her husband, who could not even move, in a basket, and carrying it upon her head, hurried towards the harlot's house. It was pitch dark, and not only that, it was drizzling. A cold wind pierced her ears. Owing to the heavy load on her head, her neck seemed to give in. Her weary legs became unsteady, and they kept slipping in the wet mud. While she was carrying him under such severe circumstances, her wicked husband sat in the basket, dangling his legs gleefully, anticipating the pleasure that would be his. His violent movement increased her exertion and made it unbearable. Her entreaties not to sway fell on deaf ears. She plodded on wearily in the dark. The way to the harlot street lay near a burial ground. Since Sumati could not see the way in the darkness, she went through the burial ground. That day the king had sentenced a Maharshi by the name of Mandavya to be tortured, mistaking him for a false tapaswin. The place where he was undergoing the sentence was close to the path that Sumati took. In the thick darkness where nothing could be seen, the moment of utter ruination for Kaushika drew near. In the joy of the moment, Kaushika was kicking his legs rather roughly, and they hit Maharshi Mandavya. Maharshi Mandavya was holding on to his life precariously. He had somehow controlled his fury by accepting this punishment as the result of unexpended past karma. But then he suddenly received a hard kick from Kaushika, and he grew wild with uncontrollable rage. Immediately he pronounced an irrevocable curse. "That sinner who kicked me without cause shall die by sunrise tomorrow." Curse pierced the ears of the dutiful wife like a pike. She was frightened. Instantly the counter curse, "If so, may the sun never rise," came out of the mouth of that virtuous and faithful wife. Fear of death gripped Kaushika, who had until then been swaying indifferently on his wife's head. When he heard the Maharshi's curse, he began to cry. Trembling with fear of death, he asked his wife to take him home. She obeyed him, as she always did. In accordance with the words that had come from that dutiful wife, the wheel of the sun's chariot stopped. The chariot did not move any more. "Oh, mother," Indra cried, "is there anything that is unknown to you? All calculations of time depend on the sun. Not merely calculation of time, the very existence of all the worlds depends on it. Now that the sun's movement has stopped, the world is drowned in darkness. The stars have lost their luster. O mother, there is no motion in the stars and the planets. The animal kingdom is faced with annihilation. Since the sun has stopped moving, all activities have come to a standstill. Performance of sacrifices are governed by time. Now time is without motion. Therefore, sacrifices have been obstructed. Because of the obstruction of sacrifices, we have been deprived of the oblations which are our food, and so we Devatas are starved. Thus, we have become powerless, and consequently, the earth has had no rains. The yield of corn has declined, and human beings are facing starvation. O Mother, if men propitiate us with oblations as usual, we send down rains and make them contented and happy. We punish the wicked who rob us of the oblations which are fully due to us. This is the usual custom. By discontinuing this, the well-being of the world is now in jeopardy. Perplexed at such a perilous situation, we approached the Universal Father, who is your father-in-law, and sought refuge in him. Out of consideration for us, he has shown us a way to save the situation. The power of a dutiful and virtuous wife is the cause of this distress. As a diamond cuts a diamond, so the power of another dutiful and virtuous wife alone can save us. In all the three worlds, there is none who can excel Anasuya in virtue and devotion to her husband. Therefore, we should, he suggested, pray to you to be compassionate and to shower auspiciousness. Following these instructions, we have come to you to seek succor. Therefore, O Mother, be merciful to us, protect the worlds, make the sun rise, and re-establish the course of the world as heretofore. You are our only refuge. On seeing the pitiable condition of the entreating Devata chiefs, the hearts of the saintly couple were filled with compassion. Maharshi Atri glanced towards Anasuya in approval. Then Anasuya gave them assurance and said, O Devatas, there is no power which can defy the might of a chaste and virtuous wife. The curse pronounced by that faithful wife can only be reversed by herself. There is nothing others can do in this regard. Therefore, for your sake, I shall go to that jewel among virtuous wives, and on your behalf solicit her, and through her alone make the sun rise. But, she continued, the curse uttered by a Maharshi is irrevocable. Therefore, her husband cannot remain unaffected by it. Then, with the consent of all of you, I shall do appropriate good to her. Do not be afraid. Now, let us proceed to Sumati's house. Assuring the Devatas thus, Anasuya and Maharshi Atri left for Sumati's house. Anasuya entered the house first. On beholding the admirable and respectable Sumangali, the greatest among virtuous and faithful wives, Sumati was filled with joy. She got up and received Anasuya with the customary Arghya and Padya and offered her worship and prostrations. Anasuya talked of this and that, and slowly drawing Sumati into conversation said, "My dear girl, I am very glad to see you. I believe that you are serving your husband with utmost devotion. That is why I am eager to make inquiries of you, young woman. Please tell me all without any reservations. Do you experience an inexpressible thrill when you see your husband? Do you consider your husband to be greater than all the Devatas? Do you rise before him every day and prostrate to him, looking upon him as God? Are you without any negligence wearing signs of auspiciousness such as turmeric, kumkum? Are you agreeable to him at all times? Are you aware of what the scriptures say about the characteristics of a faithful wife? For a virtuous and devoted wife, the company of her husband alone is all the world. His happiness is her happiness. His nearness alone gives meaning to her life. She has life so long as the husband is hale and hearty. Such a one is said to be a pativrata, a chaste woman loyal to her husband. You look like such a dutiful and devoted wife. Do not treat lightly what I have said as coming from an old woman. The reason for my telling you all this is, I know from experience what the fruits of being a pativrata are. I have acquired all the powers of doing good by being a devoted and virtuous wife. For me, there is no other God, no other worship, no other right. While a man cannot acquire merit without undergoing much suffering and without observing rituals, for us, dedicated service to our husbands is enough. That alone can easily give us all rewards. I have heard that you serve your husband with utter devotion and hard work, and that has made me say all this to you. My dear, listen to what I am going to tell you. For women, there is no need for any other religious observances or disciplines. For a woman, her husband alone is God. Service to one's husband is worship to God. I have achieved great things by that alone. As you two are treading that path, you will definitely attain felicity." "Very well," she added. "I have been talking to you so much, but you have not uttered a single word." On beholding Anasuya, who was thus talking to her so joyfully and lovingly, Sumati was filled with happiness. She bowed to Anasuya again and began to speak. "O mother, you have been talking to me about the discipline of which I have been firmly convinced since girlhood, and which I have been observing all along in thought, word, and deed. Your words have increased my faith 1,000-fold. I have been following it to the best of my ability, the path trodden by elders like you. I have been following to the best of my ability the path trodden by elders like you. I am indeed very happy that you have blessed me with your darshan. But you should not have taken the trouble of coming all the way to my house. If you had sent word through a crow, I would certainly have come to you. You have undertaken all this trouble because of your affection for me and to bless me. Mother, that you have come out of your house shows that you have some work to do connected with the well-being of the world. This is certain. Please, let me know what I, though only a humble being, can do in that regard." Anasuya felt happy within herself at Sumati's understanding and her humility. Anasuya then decided that the time was ripe to reveal the purpose of her coming. With a gentle smile on her face, and yet with great dignity, she spoke thus. "My dear, what you have said is true. I have come out of my house with a definite purpose. Not only have I come to your house, but Indra and other gods have also come with me. They have not come here with any selfish motive. They have come to plead with you to secure the welfare of the world. But they are afraid to come before you. My dear, I know that there is nothing in all the 14 worlds which you do not know, and the gods also know this. The division of time into day and night is now in your hands. If there is no day and night, there cannot be any rituals. There can be no sacrifices and hence no rains, no crops, and no life. I need not explain to you the mutual relationships. O Sumati, when I think of this and look at you, I cannot control the tears rolling down my face. Destiny has placed you in such a critical situation. The power of your virtue and devotion to your husband will lead to the dissolution of the world. I know your predicament, but can any virtuous woman like you approve of the untimely destruction of the world? Think about this carefully. A 10-day period of time has been lost in the womb of darkness. The situation is getting out of hand. See how before you these great ones stand humbly entreating you. I too am begging you. One single word from your mouth can save the entire world of living and non-living things. Therefore, my dear Sumati, listen to me. Hurry up and relieve the worlds. Sumati was confused to see Anasuya so overcome with emotion and speaking so much contrary to her usual nature. She could not even think. The great Anasuya who stood before her was the mother of the 3 goddesses, and a whole host of devatas were waiting for her consent. But when she considered her own situation, she felt quite desperate and said, "Mother, what shall I say? I cannot be angry with the friend of the world. I cannot be angry with the worlds. But what shall I do? This is my karma. Muni Mandavya's curse." Sumati could not continue with such anguish rising in her. But Anasuya did not give up and said, "My dear, if you were to be harmed, or if any harm were to come to your husband, do you think that these holy ones and the devatas would just look on doing nothing? Not only I, every virtuous and devoted woman in the world would support you. There is no cause for fear. Do not delay, Sumati. Invoke the sun god and save the worlds." On hearing Anasuya's words, which sounded like temple bells, Sumati stood up and bowed to her husband mentally. Raising her folded hands and prostrating to the sun god, she prayed in a faltering voice, "O Father Surya Narayana, pardon my offense. Continue your journey. Father, save the worlds." Instantly, the sun's chariot moved on. The joy of all living beings knew no bounds, and the righteous ones prepared for their Sandhya ceremonies, a ceremony performed at the juncture of the 3 divisions of the day. The sun came over the top of the eastern hills. Every corner of the world was filled with joy and looked like the new petals of a blossoming lotus. But in one corner, unknown to the world, sat Sumati. Distress spread all over her face. She put her husband's head in her lap as he lay dying. That innocent and devoted wife gently rubbed her husband's dying body. Overcome with grief and stifling her sobs, she fell to the ground. She was not aware of the world around her, nor did she see Anasuya, who was by her side. Besides Anasuya, none else took any notice of poor Sumati. Every one was happy and danced without a care. Only Anasuya, standing by her side, looked at the helpless and grief-stricken woman and concentrated her mind on Kaushika. The vital air had gone out of him and mingled with the infinite surrounding air. Suddenly a voice sounding like the ringing of victory bells caught Sumati's ears. It called aloud, "O eternal Sumangali!" The call was a roar, a powerful outcry. It was Anasuya's voice, unknown, a strange divine effulgence shone in her eyes. Sumati listened intently. "O eternal Sumangali, do not be afraid. On one side is the power of tapas, on the other is the power of a virtuous and devoted wife. Until now, tapas has reigned. Now, the might of a virtuous and faithful wife will have its turn." For a moment, Anasuya meditated upon her husband silently. Then slowly and emphatically she pronounced the following words: "If I have not at any time considered another man as my husband's equal in form, character, intellect, tapas, or gentle disposition, if I have not considered any person in all the three worlds as the equal of my husband, then may this Brahmin Kaushika come to life again, be free from diseases, and following the path of righteousness, live for 1,000 years." Anasuya's words reverberated across the whole sky like the sound of a celestial conch. Instantly, Kaushika arose as though awaking from a sleep. He was free from his disease, and his body was as robust and strong as a diamond. Not only this, his mind too had become pure and peaceful. The principles of dharma had now become clear as crystal to him. He stood up immediately and prostrated to Anasuya. Flowers were rained on Anasuya's head by the devatas, and Kaushika felt as if Abhisheka water was pouring over his head. The sound of heavenly drums and the dance of celestial beings were heard and seen all over the sky, and shouts of victory echoed everywhere. Then Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara appeared together in the sky. On beholding them, Anasuya and Atri prostrated to them, and others followed. The three gods, with a smile on their faces, congratulated Anasuya on her success, which could not be achieved by anyone else in all the three worlds. They bid her to ask them a boon of her choice, which they would grant as a token of their grace. On hearing this, Anasuya, jewel among virtuous and devoted wives, lifting her folded hands onto her head, said in a gentle voice, "O gods, if you consider me worthy of receiving a boon, I would wish for the same boon which my husband has already chosen. After all, a wife is her husband's reflection. May you be born as our children and grant us the auspicious opportunity to obtain final beatitude by overcoming all obstacles." The three gods appreciated Anasuya's wish and saying, "May it be so," disappeared. Thereafter, Sumati, with a beaming face and a feeling of intense gratitude, prostrated to Anasuya, who embraced her affectionately and shed tears of joy. The saintly couple spent some time with Kaushika and Sumati and then returned to their hermitage. The austerities of Atri and Anasuya continued unhindered. A long time passed. One day, when Atri saw his wife's radiant and beautiful face, he thought that it was an auspicious time to beget an offspring. Anasuya, who had attained identity with her husband's intellect and thoughts, apprehended his intention immediately. But right away they discarded the thought. It might have been indeed the day for begetting an issue, but for the saintly couple, who had led a pure life, away from the pulls and pressures of the senses for several thousands of celestial years, the idea was foreign and disgusting. Their minds did not approve of it. Immediately both of them decided to follow the path of ideation. Atri, who was immersed in unimaginable concentration, gazed at his wife unwinkingly, and a power came forth suddenly from his eyes and fell onto the ground. On seeing this, the wind god rushed forward at a tremendous speed and scattered those lustrous drops of Atri's power in all the 10 directions. Then the presiding deities of the directions consumed the drops and conceived. As a result, they gave birth to the moon, in whom the quality of Rajas was predominant, and who possessed an aspect of the four-faced Brahma, and who, immortal by nature, was the lord of the kingdom of plants and herbs. He became the bestower of life to all beings. Later, Sriman Narayana, combining with himself the aspects of Brahma and Shiva, was born to Anasuya in the form of Dattatreya. When Anasuya conceived again, Rudra, in whom tamas was preeminent, being enraged by the misdeeds of the king Haihaya, was born to her for the specific purpose of destroying him. On the seventh day after his birth he began to walk. He was named Durvasa. In this manner, out of the aspects of the three gods, 3 children were born to Anasuya and Atri. Of them, the moon went away to rule over Chandraloka in the heavens. Sri Dattatreya settled in Sahyadri mountains as the lord of the lords of yoga, as the destroyer of the wicked Daityas and protector of the virtuous, as the wish-fulfilling Kalpataru to the devotees, and as the protector of the whole world. Childhood of Datta. Thus, as the unprecedented fruit of the Maharshi's austerities, Dattatreya incarnated in order to maintain the world order. Already in his boyhood it became clear to the ashramites that Datta was most extraordinary. The ascetics were dumbfounded when they realized that the boy possessed unusual spiritual powers. The child's deeds were such that even sages advanced in years could not perform them even after years of practice. They realized that he was endowed with infinite and amazing superhuman powers, but they could not fathom the reality behind Dattatreya. The boyhood activities of Dattatreya were beyond their comprehension. It was obvious that he was not an ordinary human being. They became convinced that he was worthy of reverence and that he should be approached to obtain Atma Yoga, which alone can disperse all sorrows. As time passed, Dattatreya became a lover of solitude. Once he thought of shunning all company and of following the ascetic discipline of yoga for a long time. His companions somehow sensed this. They worried about what would happen to them if Datta were to go into solitude, never to return. All of them surrounded Datta and compelled him to accept them as disciples. Datta resolved to test them. In their very presence, Datta went to a nearby lake and disappeared into it. His disciples were struck with awe on seeing this. They could not leave him because of their interest in yoga, their affection towards Datta, and their attachment to his person. Recollecting again and again his divine and auspicious form, capable of enchanting all the 3 worlds, they decided not to return to their homes till they saw Datta again. They remained standing at the edge of the lake, waiting for him. Thus 100 celestial years passed. Dattatreya was immersed in the bliss resulting from absorption in deep meditation at the bottom of the lake. Seeing that the ascetics were still waiting for him after 100 years, he felt happy. But he wanted to test them further. Dattatreya is as firm in testing as he is compassionate. He emerged out of the lake holding in one arm a handsome damsel and a pot of wine in the other. The very sight of the damsel in dishabille was shocking to them, not to mention the sight of the wine pot. Dattatreya and the damsel seemed to be oblivious to the onlookers. Seeing Dattatreya in this situation, many of the young ascetics were filled with aversion. They thought, he may possess a little yogic power, but he has fallen from righteousness. Fie upon him. So thinking, they left and went away. Dattatreya laughed at them. His provoking sports increased to test the remaining devotees. It is impossible to narrate all the arts performed by him in the company of that seemingly shameless damsel. Nothing seemed to hinder them in their indulgence. On seeing this state of affairs, some more young ascetics left. Only a few remained. They were laughing to themselves while they witnessed the sports indulged in by Datta. Then with folded hands they began to praise him. Lord Datta, Yogeshwara, O Master, take pity on us. You are the supreme Lord of Yogis. The wind which touches the flame of a lamp touches the flames of a burning pyre the next moment. The same wind touches Brahmarshis also, and again it comes into contact with Chandalas. But the wind is stained neither by virtues nor by vices. In the same manner, purity resulting from righteousness or impurity resulting from unrighteousness cannot touch you who have attained self-realization by the power of yoga, and therefore are supreme. Dull-witted persons, not knowing this, aspire to bind you with worldly laws, which is like binding the lion, the king of animals, with a piece of thread. A few stupid ones, confused by your extraordinary superhuman state, have imitated you and deviated from the path of righteousness. You cannot be attained by such ignorant people. Lord, out of compassion, you have revealed to us this subtle truth. Therefore, please put an end to all this testing and teasing. Be merciful and save us. To these devotees, who were of such firm mind and insight, and who had grasped the significance of his sports, Dattatreya showed his true universal form. He blessed them with the knowledge of Yoga Supreme. Dattatreya still retains the habit of testing the steadfastness and devotion of his devotees in various ways. He put to test many great devotees, including Kartavirya and others. Those who did not succumb to delusion or fickle-mindedness have reaped great spiritual fruits from the Lord. Residence in Sahyadri. After blessing the steadfast ascetics, Dattatreya returned home. Anasuya, not knowing where her darling son had gone all these years, had waited in anguish for his return. She was overcome with joy on seeing the object of her love again. Making prostrations to his mother's feet, Dattatreya said, Mother, for the sake of the devotees, I have to go and reside in the caves of Sahyadri. Please permit me to do so. Anasuya had been just comforting herself with the thought that her son had at last come back after so many years, but now she was shocked that he was about to leave her again. She felt as though her heart was breaking. Though Anasuya had observed great austerities for a very long time, she was now in the worldly grip of motherly attachment to her son. She wept and told him that he could not leave them. But Dattatreya obstinately insisted on leaving. Anasuya's suffering was unbearable. Overcome by grief and attachment, she cried and pleaded with him. But Dattatreya stuck obstinately to his resolve. At last, when she could no longer control her sorrow and anger, she said, Datta, you may be a yogi. You may even be a guru to your disciples. But don't forget that you are my son. Don't ever forget that the skin-covered body of yours was given by me. Therefore, if you want to go, first give me back this skin that I have given to you. On hearing this, Dattatreya stood unmoved and smiled gently. Seeing him smile, Anasuya wondered what this meant. Dattatreya peeled off his skin as though he was removing a coat and gave it to his mother. When she saw the skinless, disfigured form of Dattatreya radiating great luster, her gaze suddenly turned inward. She beheld the divine light and thus obtained infinite bliss and lasting peace. On experiencing bliss uncontaminated by sorrow, Anasuya became tranquil. Thus, illumined by her son Datta, she gave him back his skin and addressed him humbly. Guru Datta, you are a world teacher, incarnated to lead the world from darkness to light. You are beyond time, beyond birth and death. You have revealed the truth to me. Hereafter, you may dwell in Sahyadri according to your desire and reign over the hearts of your devotees. May the universe attain prosperity. With great satisfaction, Dattatreya left for Sahyadri. Making Sahyadri the center of his activities and receiving devotees from the three worlds by protecting the good and punishing the wicked, Dattatreya ruled over the kingdom of yoga. Yet his actions continued to be rather unusual. They remained incomprehensible for most. Sometimes he would assume the pleasing and peaceful form of an ascetic. At other times, he would take on a detestable form. Whatever form he assumed and whatever his superficial appearance, he always remained established in yoga. There was never a decline in his yoga. The mere mental recitation of his name is enough to burn away all the sins of man. There are no better means than his stories to purify human hearts. His pastimes and stories are innumerable. The wise ones say that it is not possible even for the 1,000-headed Shesha to describe them in detail. The fact that Dattatreya incarnated as a human being and saved many souls is not a great thing, but that even the Devatas, including Indra, approached Dattatreya when they were in trouble and attained their objectives is a thing of great joy and wonder. Among the divine sports of Dattatreya, the killing of Jambasura is only a very minor one. Killing of Jambasura. Once upon a time, a demon named Jambasura, having become invincible by the power of penance, invaded heaven. Indra faced him with the army of Devatas, and the battle raged for a year without interruption. Gradually the Devatas grew weary and began to flee. The demons became foolishly vain and boastful. Indra was frightened at this. He came to the conclusion that only a clever contriver attains success and not he who fights with imprudent courage. When, in spite of much thinking, no plan occurred to him, he approached Brihaspati, the preceptor of the Devas, who was at that time with Valakhilya and other Maharshis, and entreated him to conceive a plan. After consulting with Valakhilya and others, Brihaspati said, Devendra, even the 3 gods cannot save you from this calamity, but Dattatreya, who is of the form of the Trinity, is now in Sahyadri immersed in yoga. It is your good fortune that he is thinking of you. Your success is almost assured, but you need unwavering devotion and steadfast faith to please him. There is no other means. Overcome with joy on hearing this, Indra immediately set out towards Sahyadri. But Brihaspati held him back, saying, Son, I am talking to you with affection because you are my disciple. Bear this in mind. Dattatreya is very severe in testing. He may appear very ugly and loathsome, or he may be engaged in despicable practices. You may be subjected to many severe tests. Be careful. Do not be disgusted. Understand that he is pure like a flame, and nothing can taint him. Farewell. May success be yours. Reflecting carefully on Brihaspati's words, Indra went to Sahyadri. Bhagavan Dattatreya was at that time engaged in apparently frivolous activity. There were Gandharvas singing in front of him, others were handing him pots full of intoxicating drinks, and the woman who was rolling on him had no clothes worthy of the name covering her body. Dattatreya was highly intoxicated. It was at such a seemingly inopportune time that Indra and the Devatas arrived there. The advice that had been given to Indra by his guru was now most helpful. Remembering that Dattatreya loved to subject people to severe tests, they stood there with their hands folded. They joined the attendants and began to serve him. A few of the devatas served meat and wine. Some engaged themselves in setting right the beds. Others arranged the table for a repast. Indra, standing by Dattatreya's side, supplied him with whatever he wanted immediately. Sometimes the Bhagavan, forgetting himself, would spit on his own body, and at other times he would spit in Indra's face. Yet Indra did not flinch. His devotion did not falter. If Bhagavan walked, Indra too walked. If Bhagavan sat, Indra also sat. If Dattatreya stood, Indra stood humbly with his hands folded. Indeed, all the devatas served Dattatreya in this manner for some time. One day, Bhagavan Dattatreya turned towards Indra and asked him softly, "Hey, why are you hanging on to me?" Indra narrated all that had happened. He humbly begged Dattatreya to save him and the devatas by granting victory to them, since they could no longer withstand Jambasura's attacks and had to flee. On hearing this, Lord Dattatreya burst out laughing and said, "Oh, it's quite obvious. Since you are poor in understanding, your enemies are able to overcome you. Catching hold of me, who has fallen into the snares of a woman and is floating in wine, you are foolishly asking for my support to conquer that giant. In the past, someone said that he would cross the river Ganga by holding a dog's tail. Your conduct is of the same kind." With folded hands, Indra appealed to Dattatreya. "Lord, you are the world teacher. You are knowledge personified. Neither righteousness nor unrighteousness applies to you, who are ever shining with the internal light of wisdom. Why are you trying to deceive us?" Indra was about to continue, but Lord Dattatreya interrupted him and said, "Indra, why should anything be concealed from you? True, I have some power obtained by yoga, and you have somehow seen this. But of what use can it be? There are deeds which can be performed only by those possessing intense power derived from tapas. How can I, so enjoying this woman and indulging in wine, find time for tapas? And you have seen my lustful longing for women. What is there that you do not already know? Lust alone is enough to drag a man from lofty heights and push him into the caves of the netherworld. Any amount of tapas cannot prevent such a fall." Hearing this, Indra prostrated with 8 parts of his body touching the ground, and in a choking voice entreated him again, "Lord, by your grace I know that you are sinless. The woman is none other than Mother Indira, who is born as Anagha for your sake. She is the primeval mother, and you are the primeval Purusha. Can the sun's rays be tainted with sin by touching a vile person? O Lord, why are you trying to deceive us? Whatever you may say, we will not leave this place. You alone are our refuge. We have no other shelter." With this, Indra fell down at the Lord's feet. Dattatreya said, "Indra, you are a very important person, and as the Lord of the 3 worlds, you are quite insistent. I cannot deny the truth of your words, but I cannot move from this place. However, if you can manage to bring your foes before me, I shall do what I can." Indra, who had acquired great strength, felt that he was now as strong and sturdy as a mountain. Immediately he consulted with the other devatas, and reaching heaven, challenged Jambasura to a fight. With terrific anger, Jambasura came out with his army, roaring that he would root out the remnants of the enemy. It wasn't long before the devatas lost their fortitude and began to flee. The enthusiasm of the Rakshasas increased, and they began to chase the devatas, saying that they would not stop until the enemy was rooted out. Running hither and thither, the Devatas came at last before Lord Dattatreya, and their foes followed them to that very place. When they came, Lord Dattatreya, in the guise of a drunkard, was making merry in the company of Anaghadevi. When those sinful souls saw Anaghadevi, they became quite giddy. Anaghadevi was of a rare and enchanting beauty, and she was half naked at that time. Not only that, she was also tipsy from so much drinking. The Rakshasas forgot entirely that there was a war to fight against the Devatas, and that half-naked beggar there was in their consideration not even a human being. They dragged Dattatreya aside and pushed him away. Then the Rakshasas grabbed Anaghadevi and, lifting her up, boldly placed her in a palanquin they had brought. Competing with one another, and with everyone pushing everyone else, they tried to place the palanquin on their heads so that they could carry her off. While they were thus engaged, Lord Dattatreya laughed loudly, and reassuring the Devatas, said, "O Devatas, your luck is bearing fruit. Now Lakshmi has crossed 7 positions in them and has reached their head. They cannot hold her any more. There is nothing for you to fear." The Devatas then questioned him forthwith, "Lord, which are her dwelling places, and what is the effect of Lakshmi's dwelling in those places?" With a smile, Lord Dattatreya explained, "Listen, O Devatas, if Lakshmi resides in a man's feet, he will live in large mansions. If she is in his thighs, there is opulence and wealth. If she dwells in his private parts, it results in the enjoyment of his wife. When she dwells in the chest, there is an increase of progeny and the attainment of happiness. Her residence in the heart results in the fulfillment of desires, and in the neck it brings an increase in relatives. When her dwelling is in the face, she confers an abundance in food, absolute power over others, and the capacity to compose poetry. Then, after traversing these 7 places, when Lakshmi reaches the head, she will not remain there. O Devatas, now Lakshmi has entered the heads of those sinners, and leaving them, she will jump towards you. Be alert and take up arms. The demons have now been rendered impotent by me. If any merit would still remain, it will also be burned to ashes because they have touched another's wife. Therefore, this is the appropriate time for you. Now, accomplish your victory." While the Lord was addressing the Devatas thus, a quarrel broke out among the demons. It started with everyone arguing that he alone should be near the beautiful damsel, and that he alone should carry the beautiful damsel, and he alone should carry the palanquin. This culminated in a loud quarrel. Encouraged by Lord Dattatreya, the Devatas started to fight with great vigor and killed all the demons. Anaghadevi jumped out of the palanquin and joined Lord Dattatreya. Thus, by the grace of Dattatreya, the Devatas were able to regain their kingdom of heaven. For Lord Dattatreya, the protection of Indra and other Devatas was not a big feat. Subsequently, he became the preceptor to and protector of Brahma himself, the creator of all the worlds and one among the Trinity. Here is the story. Gifting the Vedas. In the early days of creation of humankind, Sanaka, Sanandana and others, the first human beings created, all devoted to righteousness, were engaged in severe austerities and were free from attachment and hatred. They were knowers of the self. Their bent of mind became a cause of concern to Brahma, who had wanted his creation to proceed in infinite directions. He thought over the matter intently. He understood that his work would not proceed without investing the human species with a streak of ignorance. So he created ignorance in its 5 forms: tamas, moha, mahamoha, tamishra, and andhatamishra. Moha means attachment to the body. Mahamoha means the love of enjoyments. Tamishra means anger. Andhatamishra represents the feeling that one would be as good as dead if there were any detriment to one's wealth and pleasure. In creating this avidya, illusion or maya, with so many subtle distinctions, Brahma had to ponder over it intently for a long time. But how powerful avidya was, for very soon it enveloped the Creator himself. His intellect stopped functioning, and the Vedas failed to be revealed to him. He felt as though he had become blind, deaf, dumb, and lame, and he was afflicted with great sorrow. Recovering slowly, he thought out an expedient method. Reaching Sahyadri, he meditated upon Renuka Devi, the embodiment of Parashakti, who had settled there. In no time she appeared before him. Brahma prostrated to her and solicited her thus: "O Mother of the three worlds, with a view to continuing creation, I created avidya, and now it has enveloped me. I have forgotten the Vedas. I cannot even recollect the Gayatri mantra. Mother, I cannot bear this misfortune. Bless me, so that the Vedas may reveal themselves to me again." Having heard him, Mother Renuka gave him assurance and said, "O Brahma, why are you grieving so much? In the past, when the Vedas were stolen, did not Vasudeva restore them to you? Now also pray to Vasudeva himself." On hearing this, Brahma felt as though a completely new idea had come to him, and he was very happy. Reaching Vaikuntha, he began to search for Vasudeva. But since he was enveloped in avidya, he could not see Vasudeva anywhere. Instead, he saw only a black amalaka tree, which was emitting shining rays. Taking the tree in his hand, Brahma, disappointed at his failure to find Vasudeva, came back to Mother Renuka and, placing the tree before her, said, "Mother, I could not see the Lord. I only saw this tree." Laughing, Mother Renuka said, "O Creator, to bless those who, like you, are covered by avidya, Vasudeva has assumed the form of Dattatreya and is residing on Sahyadri mountain. Do not fear, I shall make him come here." Then the Universal Mother meditated and caused Lord Dattatreya to come there with Anaghadevi. She said, "See, Brahma wants something. Give it to him." Then Lord Dattatreya asked Brahma what he wanted, and Brahma narrated his woeful story. Lord Dattatreya, addressing him seriously, said, "O Creator, listen carefully. The entire literature of the world is of the form of sound. If you observe carefully, you will find that a single sound is inherent in all the letters of the alphabet. It is that sound that illumines those letters. The Universal Mother Renuka, who is before you, is called Brahma Rupini, Vedamata, and Savitri by the expounders of Brahman. In the same way, she is also described as Ekavira, Onkaraikaswara, and Ekamatra. Since she has 8 names, namely Hladini, Vimala, Utkarshini, Jnana Yoga, Itya, Ishana, Prahvi, and Anugraha, she is also called Ashtaprayaya Vachika. She alone is the mother of this universe. Besides her, there is nothing else in this world, and she appears in many forms. Therefore, she is known as Ekavira. O four-faced one, I shall tell you again. She alone is Vedamata, Gayatri, and Brahmarupini." Thus, Dattatreya finished his serious exhortation. Looking thoughtfully at Dattatreya, Brahma said, "Oh, is she Ekavira and Gayatri? Is she alone Vedamata?" Before Brahma could continue, the Vedas suddenly issued forth like lightning from the face of Anagha Devi, who was with Dattatreya, and entered Renuka Devi's face. Beholding this, Brahma jumped with joy. All the Vedas with their branches flashed in his mind. With great zeal he praised Mother Renuka thus, O Mother, by your grace and that of Lord Dattatreya, I now understand that Omkara, consisting of Akara, Ukara, and the half-syllabled Makara, is your true form. You alone are Vedamata. You alone indeed shine in infinite forms. Thus extolling Mother Renuka in many ways, Brahma prostrated to Dattatreya and went away with a feeling of fulfillment. Treating this incident as though it was nothing important, sitting under the Amalaka tree that had been brought there, Lord Dattatreya became absorbed in meditation. In this manner, Lord Dattatreya restored the Vedas once again to Brahma, as he had done during his incarnation as the fish. He became Brahma's guru, and having removed his affliction, became his protector also. Amalakashram. On account of the Amalaka tree, that region came to be called Amalaka Ashram, and the village Amalaki. In fact, there is much more to be learnt about the tree. Long ago, when the demons and the devatas churned the ocean together, many precious things, such as Lakshmi, Kaustubha gem, emerged. Along with them, an Amalaka tree full of ambrosia also rose up. The devatas offered it to Srihari along with Lakshmi. He placed it in the ocean for Lakshmi's sake. Later, when he manifested himself as Dattatreya in the form of the Trinity, he thought of bringing with him half the portion of that tree. Subsequently, he willed that, like himself, the tree should also have the form of the Trinity. Doesn't his will always come true? Brahma's bringing it and establishing it on earth are events that took place later. Therefore, the aspects of Brahma and Vishnu had blended in it without any effort. Lord Dattatreya used to perform penance sitting under that tree. A long time passed. The Universal Mother incarnated herself as Renuka and became the wife of Maharshi Jamadagni, who was born of the aspect of Shiva. To that couple was born Parashurama of the aspect of Narayana. Subsequently, for diverse reasons, Jamadagni incurred Kartaviryaarjuna's hostility, and because of this, Kartaviryaarjuna's sons killed Jamadagni. When he heard this, Parashurama vowed to exterminate the whole race of Kshatriyas. But Mother Renuka advised him to perform the cremation of his father's corpse first and then fulfill his vow. So, carrying his father's corpse, Parashurama went to Dattashrama with his mother. There, showing him the imperishable Amalaka tree, Mother Renuka said, "My son, this Amalaka tree is verily Vishnu himself. It contains Brahma's aspect also. Climb this tree now and meditate on your father, who was of the form of Parameshwara. Then it will assume the form of the Trinity." Parashurama carried out his mother's orders. Mother Renuka then narrated to him the entire story of the tree and said, "Now this tree is of the nature of the Trinity. It belongs to Vaikuntha. Half the aspect of it has come here, the other aspect is in the nether regions. Thus it pervades the three worlds. It is very dear to Lord Dattatreya. By merely seeing it, all the sins of human beings will be destroyed and peace of mind will be obtained. After your vow is accomplished, repose under this tree." This Amalaka possesses such greatness that the whole village has become a place of pilgrimage and is renowned as Amalaki village and Amalaka Ashram. Later, since Mother Renuka resided there, it also acquired the name Matapura. At another time, Lord Dattatreya established under that tree the eternal form of Maheshwara, he also pronounced that whosoever sees him in the form of Maheshwara and worships with devotion would be blessed with immediate liberation. Padmatirtha. It is said that if the philosopher's stone touches clay, it becomes gold. In the neighborhood of sandalwood trees, a neem tree becomes fragrant because of the quality and quantity of the fragrance of the sandalwood trees. Similarly, when we know that by merely being associated with Lord Dattatreya, ponds such as Matratirtha, Meru Tataka, and Padmatirtha have become great places of pilgrimage, we can imagine the great glory of the Lord and delight in it. As an example of many stories connected with these places, we shall tell the story of Padmatirtha. The sun god, who is the eternal witness to the sins and merits of one and all and a friend of the world, had a daughter named Bhanumati. She was beautiful and fair-limbed from head to toe. God's ways are sometimes very strange. One day, the divine witness of all actions saw his own daughter who shone with the luster of youth and became infatuated with her. However exalted a person may be, if once he begins to fall, very rarely does he rise again. Unable to check his overpowering lust, the sun god tried to seduce his own daughter. The daughter was stunned at this. She began to tremble with fear and shame, but the words of righteousness she uttered did not reach his ears. Even as she ran away, the sun god pursued her. The daughter ran on and entered at last a thick forest. Then she took the form of a deer and began to roam about there. The sun is the world's eye. There is no place which he cannot see. Yet, with 1,000 eyes, he searched for her everywhere. In the end, he came to know that she had concealed herself in the form of a deer, and he again tried to catch her. By that time, the news reached the Devatas and Rishis, and they all came there just as the sun god was about to catch his daughter in deer form. They were alarmed and, rushing forward, prevented him from doing that wicked deed. The witness of all deeds felt as if he were dead. Everyone who had come, elders and youngsters alike, heaped abuses on him. He felt humiliated not only by his equals, but even by those who were inferior to him. "Fie on him," they cried. "What a mean deed it is! It is the worst among sins to be instigated by a dark intellect to seize one's own daughter with mad infatuation." It is said that when either sin or merit reaches a climax, it yields fruit instantly. If this is the fate of him who is the seer of the actions of all, then what about the others? Head sunk, mouth shut, the sun god stood there ashamed. Suffering the fruits of one's sinful deeds cannot be avoided. The rishis and devatas saw that a severe and loathsome leprosy caught hold of the sun god and spread all over his body. It is said that health is bestowed by the sun's grace. By praying to him, people in the world remain healthy. But now the sun god himself was in the grip of an unexpected and disastrous disease. Bhanumati gave up the form of the deer and assumed her original form. She was righteous and soft-hearted as she was beautiful. Shedding tears and begging forgiveness on her father's behalf, she said, "O noble souls, all of you are very kind, because wicked persons who have strayed from righteousness inhabit this world. You have composed dharmashastras and expounded at length expiatory rites. From those religious treatises you composed, we know how severe and insurmountable evil is that is produced by sinful deeds in the present Kali age. In the past, when a mighty person like Indra became a victim of sins owing to mental aberration and loss of fortitude, Did you not all join together and save him? It is now my father's turn. As a result of his own doing, my father is suffering from leprosy. He to whom the whole world prays for good health and the light of knowledge, the great sun god, is himself now drowned in the darkness of disease. Please forgive his faults and kindly free him from his sins. The Devatas were astonished at her skill in pleading with words and were pleased with her understanding. They began to feel sorry for the sun god's misfortune. After some deliberation, they said, "O Bhanumati, you are an understanding person. Is it not more dreadful than the 5 deadly sins to be infatuated with one's own daughter? Your father has reaped his fruit, but there is no cause for fear. Lord Dattatreya, who is compassion personified, is in this world now. He lives in Amalaka village. By his presence, the pond Padmatirtha there has become a holy and celebrated place. It can grant happiness as well as mukti, liberation. The universal mother Renuka Devi is also residing on the banks of the same pond. Lord Dattatreya has conferred a boon that whosoever bathes in it will be rid of all diseases and will regain health. Therefore, if the sun god were to go there, bathe in the Padmatirtha and serve Mother Renuka and Lord Dattatreya, he will obtain health as well as purity. Let him do so." So the sun god went and bathed in the Padmatirtha and meditated on Renuka Devi. When he had spent a few days thus, the Divine Mother appeared before him and said, "Lord Datta's grace has fallen on you." At that very moment, the disease vanished and his body began to shine with even greater brightness than before. The sun god was overcome with joy, and after seeing Lord Dattatreya and serving him with devotion, he left for his abode. Therefore, if by being in the mere vicinity of Lord Dattatreya the pond acquired so much greatness, how much more exalted is the greatness of the Lord himself? If, after bathing in Matratirtha and Meru pond, a person offers Pinda and Tarpana to his deceased ancestors, they will all attain happiness. Such is the greatness of Lord Dattatreya. Prahlada Jnana Yoga. Many incarnations of the divine have taken place in the world until now, but there are some distinct features in Dattavatara. If we consider the Narasimha Avatara or Rama Avatara, we see that the Lord's form was limited. Sri Ramachandra or Narasimha did not appear before the devotees in different forms, but this cannot be said of Dattatreya, who takes on many forms. Generally, having some great objectives in view, the divine incarnates to fulfill them. But, owing to the nature of the world, the magnitude of the task, and limitations of time, a few of them remain uncompleted. Dattavatara, in which the Lord grants final and complete emancipation and bestows the state of Atmarama, reveling in the bliss of one's own self, is on the other hand a complete and perfect incarnation. As an illustration, let us recollect the episode in which Lord Dattatreya granted redemption to Prahlada. The story of Prahlada, son of Hiranyakashipu, in which Sri Mahavishnu incarnated as Narasimha to protect his great devotee Prahlada and obtained the title Prahlada Varada, bestower of boons to Prahlada, is well known. We shall now learn the later story. After Lord Narasimha appeared and killed Hiranyakashipu, Prahlada became king. He treated his subjects as his own children, with affection flowing from the heart, purified by the sweet nectar of Hari Bhakti, devotion to Hari. A long time passed. As king, he enjoyed many pleasures, yet all the while devoutly attached to Hari. From the worldly point of view, he lacked nothing. His heart overflowed with devotion to Hari. In this respect also, there was no deficiency. Yet, In an unknown corner of the inner part of that great devotee's heart, a thorn bush of inexplicable discontent had taken root and gradually began to trouble his heart. Questions like, what is the essential nature of this world? What is my true nature? And others arose as its shoots. After deep deliberation, accompanied by a few scholars, he undertook a journey around the world in search of the principle underlying this world. On seeing the aged Prahlada, who after long wanderings had reached the banks of Kaveri in the Sahyadri regions in the south, Bala Prahlada Varada, bestower of boons to the boy Prahlada, who was now in the form of Dattatreya in the caves of the Sahyadri, smiled with affection. Meanwhile, King Prahlada saw a sage rolling in the distant sands on the banks of the Kaveri. Though the figure was not clearly visible from a distance, the devotee, purified as he was by bhakti, felt that this was not an ordinary man. Immediately he approached him with humility and prostrated to the sage, whose whole body was smeared with mud, and politely asked, "O Munindra, pardon me. I have a doubt. Please listen and reveal the truth to me. Your custom is indeed very strange. Your body shines like gold, but you are lying in the mud. You do not seem to be inclined to take pains to earn and save money. Wealth comes to him who toils. He who has wealth obtains enjoyments. But you are not making any effort to acquire wealth. On the contrary, you appear to be sleeping, lying there like a log of wood. Yet your body not only shines, it is also quite hale and hearty. What is the cause of this? Also, some distinguishing marks are visible in you. You seem to talk with someone occasionally. By your utterances, it sounds as if you are a great poet. I also feel that you are a knower of truth and are acquainted with the Vedas. But there are times when you look like an utter fool, and then people come and scold you and even inflict pain on you. Only a very few praise you and prostrate to you. You seem indifferent to both. Neither do you scold the former nor praise the latter. You seem to be above likes and dislikes. Your conduct is contrary to the way of the world. You do not seem to be bound even by the rules of righteousness. Please, bless me and teach me your truth." The sage, moved by sympathy, opened his eyes and said, "Prahlada, you are not an ordinary man. For you, who have strong bonds of devotion to Sri Hari, whose effulgence is only matched by that of 10 million suns, there can be no such thing as darkness, and there is nothing that is invisible to you. If you assume an unworldly attitude, and with a little effort, you will understand what the fruits of action are. But since you have asked me, and since you are a great Bhagavata, a worshipper of Vishnu, I shall tell you. Listen with faith and devotion. Prahlada, I cannot describe the innumerable births that are revolving in my memory. I have taken countless strange births and have been a victim of diverse desires. Without a thought for righteousness and unrighteousness, I have taken not one but all kinds of births as animals, birds, and insects. In this revolving cycle, I have been born as a man. Do you not know that birth as a human being is the door to heaven on the one hand and to hell on the other? To me, born in this queer world, everything looks strange, lifeless, and contradictory. Now that you too are in a similar state, you can understand what I mean. Committing sins in this world results in low births, and the performance of meritorious deeds leads to superior births. Moreover, sin produces sorrow and merit produces happiness. That is why men in this world, desirous of dispelling sorrow and obtaining happiness, perform various rituals. It is surprising that whatever the reason may be for men to indulge in ceremonial observances, the results often turn out to be quite contrary to their expectations. The affairs of the world are so strange, I thought. As I pondered on this, the truth of it all became clear to my mind. It is not true that a certain action yields suffering and another yields happiness. All actions, in fact, produce sorrows in the end. Therefore, all such observances are useless. That knowledge has made me lose all interest in actions. My son, listen carefully. Bliss is the self's true nature. Enjoyments conceived by the mind are obstacles to bliss. They are impermanent. Why should I serve to seek these enjoyments which are perishable, which are obstacles to bliss, and which cause apprehension? Therefore, without undertaking any occupation or profession, and suffering the inevitable consequences of the activities pursued in previous births, I am sleeping away my life. All the people in the world think that they are knowledgeable, and thinking thus, they always strive to remove unhappiness and to obtain happiness. But if you ponder carefully, you will find that the absolute reality, which has the form of bliss, is within yourself. You are bliss, but forgetting this eternal truth, all search for happiness outside of themselves. This is the way of the world. Even those who are highly educated are revolving, caught in the wheel of samsara, which is very unreal, dualistic, and frightful. Great is the power of delusion. What kind of understanding is this, that desiring happiness for the soul, which is beyond body, senses, mind, and intellect, they are ever performing actions possible for the body and the senses? When problems and sorrows afflict someone like devils on the one hand, how can wealth and enjoyment acquired after undergoing many hardships give him even a bit of happiness? You have also seen the world thoroughly. You have had many enjoyments. Now, tell me, are the rich really happy? If they hoard, the eyes of everyone in the country will be on them. How many enemies, such as rulers, robbers, beggars, friends, and deceivers, are there who are ready to dispossess them of their wealth? A wealthy man cannot sleep in the day or in the night for fear that someone unknown might come and take away his wealth. Is this happiness? Even worse, a man of wealth is ever in fear for his life. So the love of wealth combined with the love of life produces grief, delusion, fear, anger, desire, a servile disposition, and weariness. Therefore, viewed from any standpoint, it is best to give up craving for wealth. Wealth that is to come will somehow come, definitely and effortlessly. This is not only the case with man, but also the case with all animals also. For example, look at the honeybees. They toil endlessly and parsimoniously save up all the honey they gather. But in the end, the fruit of all their labor is reaped by man. Then look at the python. Its body is big, yet it does not move about for its sustenance, but eats whatever chances to come its way. Living thus without a care, it manages to nourish its mountainous body very well. I have pondered over their attitudes for a long time. As a result, both of them have become my preceptors. The honeybee has taught me how one should not live, whereas the python has taught me how one should live. The bee has taught me resignation, the python contentment. Since then, Ajagara Vrata has become my inherent nature. If I do not have something, I do not ask anyone for it. If something is given to me, I do not refuse it. I do not worry at all if I get nothing. I do not allow sorrows and afflictions to trouble me. I do not even allow happiness to enter me. Sometimes I only get a little food. At other times, food comes plentifully even when I do not need it. Sometimes I get tasteless food. At other times, I get 5 kinds of sweets and paramanna, rice cooked in milk and sugar. Sometimes I am given food accompanied by abuses and insults. Sometimes I am offered food with kindness and with due respect. It is the same with clothes and ornaments. Here too I find myself in quite contrary situations. As you see, I am lying in the mud now, but occasions will arise when, decorated with a crown, I sit swaggering upon a regal throne. What is important here is that the one does not leave me grief-stricken, nor the other makes me any happier. The whole world is subject to Maya. It is not an independent entity. That is why, even when the people of the world treat me with respect, I do not reproach them. That is why, even when the people of the world treat me without respect, I do not reproach them in turn. Instead, I wish them to be blessed with happiness and moksha. Thus, possessing the ability to treat one and all alike, and having learned to dissolve the chitta in the mind in the ego, which is the cause of all modifications, the ego in Maya through Mahat, and Maya in the experience of the self, I have gained the bliss of the self, and I live in a state of oneness. Prahlada, you are dear to Srihari. Therefore, you are also very dear to me. That is why I have made you listen to this account of myself, which is a secret of secrets. I have done so without withholding anything. Think it over carefully. This alone is Paramahamsa Yoga. After he had heard the words of the Munindra, King Prahlada, who was the greatest Bhagavata, who had been purified by austerities and who had a stainless heart, obtained a vision of the inner light. He remained immersed in the bliss of the self for some time, and when he opened his eyes slowly, he saw before him Lord Dattatreya, with a sweet and gentle smile on his face. Prahlada worshipped Lord Dattatreya and then took leave of him. He spent the rest of his life absorbed in the bliss of the self. When we ponder over this story, another thing strikes us. Whatever God a person might worship and believe in, if he possesses the necessary maturity of mind, Lord Dattatreya will come to him in person and teach him the truth. The Lord has no name or form. Since all forms and names are his, who will not become his devotee? Who will not become his disciple? The story of King Yadu will make this clearer. Teaching King Yadu. Maharaja Yadu, founder of the Yadava dynasty in which Sri Krishna Bhagavan was born, once met an Avadhoota Swami. Wise, intelligent, and a knower of dharma as he was, Yadu observed the man and his Avadhoota behavior. Seeing him to be a knower of truth, King Yadu prostrated to him and spoke to him politely. Sir, as I see you, I feel great wonder and astonishment. Though we possess the knowledge of the Shastras, we take great pains to gratify our senses, but you do not seem to be making any such effort. How has this extraordinary understanding come to you? Even though you possess so much knowledge and are erudite, why do you sometimes behave like a boy, a madman, or a dunce? So strange are your ways. It is indeed right for you not to seek gratification of the senses, but you do not seem to be making any effort to obtain moksha. In spite of this, you appear to be always floating about in bliss. What has made this possible? The whole world is burnt like a forest by the wild fire of lust and anger. While people like us are burning in that fire, you remain unaffected, happy and calm. Without a care, like a leader elephant, you are swimming in the Ganga. What has made this state of mind possible for you? Sir, kindly instruct me. Observing the distress and humility concealed in these words, the Avadhoota comforted him thus. O King Yadu, you are sinless and know the ways of the world. I do not think that I have anything to teach you, but I have observed the world closely and obtained a little knowledge from a number of gurus. O King, I have 24 such gurus. Listen carefully. Earth, air, sky, water, fire, moon, sun, pigeon, boa constrictor, sea, moth, bee, elephant, honey thief, deer, fish, a harlot named Pingala, osprey, boy, maiden, arrow maker, snake, spider, and insect. These are my 24 gurus. O King, I shall also tell you what I learned from each of them. Listen.
Sadgurustavam.
Siddhi buddhi mahayoga varaniyo ganadhipah yasvayam Sachchidanandam sadgurum tam namamyaham yasya Dattatreya bhavo bhakta namatmadanatah suchate Sachchidanandam sadgurum tam namamyaham yoga jyotis samuddiktam jaya lakshmi nrisimhayoh Advayam Sachchidanandam Sadgurum Tam Namamyaham Yoga Vidya Chitrabhanum Chitrabhanu Sharadbhavam Jnanadam Sachchidanandam Sadgurum Tam Namamyaham Ganesha Hometadine Nityam Shri Chakra Pujane Dikshitam Sachchidanandam Sadgurum Tam Namamyaham Agastya Muni Sankranta Nana Vaidya Durandharam Bhavagram Sachchidanandam Sadgurum Tam Namamyaham Vadyodancha Divyanama Sankirtana Kalanidhim Nadabhim Sachchidanandam Sadgurum Tam Namamyaham Datta Peethadhipam Dharma Rakshanopaya Bandhuram Sakkavim Sachchidanandam Sadgurum Tam Namamyaham Vidhuta Bhakta Sammoham Avadhootam Jagadgurum Swashrayam Sachchidanandam Sadgurum Tam Namamyaham Sadhutvam Bhakti Maishwaryam Dhanam Yogamarogatam Sanmatim Jnanamanandam Sadgurustavato Labhet Sri Ganeshaya Namaha Sri Saraswatyai Namaha Sri Padavallabha Narasimha Saraswati Sri Guru Dattatreya Namaha
Kayena vacha manasendriyaiर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै श्री सच्चिदानन्द पदे पयामि।